Super excited to be here. I will tell you right now, the background is not my normal background. I am coming to you from my car. So any odd little notices of the wobbly camera and all that, it's because I'm trying to balance on my steering wheel. I'm not driving, thankfully, but sometimes you've got to do what you do wherever you can. So let me pull up my slides here. Go to the beginning. And here we go. All right. All right. Awesome. So here we go. So this presentation is Mind Over Money. Like Ellen mentioned, I'm Christine Kotik. I'm an ADHD coach. I am a former accountant. That was my first life. And then I was a stay-at-home mom. And then I was a middle school teacher and now an ADHD coach. So ADHD has been in my world for so long. And the effects of money and my ADHD have also been there for so long. So I like to tell people that I am a former, because I'm working on it, credit card collector, late bill payer, ADHD taxpayer, all of those things. And so having this conversation really is super important to me because my message for all of you tonight is that this is like, we can all do this. Sometimes our ADHD feels like we can't manage all these things and the money, and we're terrible at it and we get full of shame. But I'm here to say that that is not the case. We can actually do these things really well if we have different ways of thinking about it and doing it. So that's why I'm really excited to be talking to you tonight about this. So, sorry, some of these slides they are a little disjointed. So, and I have to move us out of the way. So, you are not alone, right? That's the reality check in facing financial challenges and setbacks. Clients that I work with, people that I talk to with ADHD, oftentimes struggle at some point or other with managing their money. And I think it's also a challenge for people who don't have an ADHD brain to manage their money. And we just get a little extra challenge with it. So my plan today is to talk about your money brain, what is going on, why do these things happen, the habit trap we get into, a little bit about the shame and shutdown cycle that happens, and then rewiring mindsets. But I think instead of rewiring mindsets, I think that I'm going to spend time talking about what are some strategies that you can use when you're struggling with your ADHD. Oh, what is happening? Usually I have two screens to do this on, and things are popping up that I'm not expecting. So sorry. Okay, here we go. There it is. All right. So, and we've all seen this the iceberg related to ADHD, and it really hits hard with the money because of the unseen emotional influences that we have. So our behaviors show up here, but all the emotional experience shows up down below the water, and that's what gets us kind of into trouble. So some of the reasons why money management can feel harder with ADHD: money can feel invisible, especially now in the world we live in. We oftentimes aren't using cash. We're oftentimes not writing checks and deducting things. It's just out there online. It's virtual. We don't see it. And so that invisibility becomes even harder because it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like even something to think about because it happens out there. We're not actually passing money back and forth. We are, but it doesn't feel like it. So that can make it harder. And that idea for folks with ADHD, sometimes the future is fiction, right? It's now or not now. So that idea of saving money for the future is really hard because we're focused on right now. That's something that's hard. Our emotions can be amplified with this. We can feel shame, we can be embarrassed, and we can shut down. and then the reward system mismatch. So I so often have, when I talk with folks and I'm talking with clients about money, when I do these presentations, we're talking about money. One of the biggest things that people share with me that is the biggest struggle is like impulse buying and difficulty saving money in that. And that's because, our reward system, we want a reward right now, not the savings for a future that can seem so far away. So that reward system mismatch can make it even harder. Research out there shows that folks with ADHD have higher financial stress than their peers, increased impulse spending over neurotypical peers. Oftentimes, folks with ADHD have lower credit scores than individuals without ADHD. And that can be from higher debt utilization, late payment or missing payments of bills. It can be from uh, just piling those things on, that having too much credit and using it badly, all those things can lead to lower credit scores. Um, Higher rate of debt and loan default, which again leads to those lower credit scores, and then challenge with savings and retirement planning. I think also one of the things that affects people and their financial systems is sometimes folks with ADHD can have more job changes and job instability, and that job change and instability then results in lower earnings, financial stress, and all of those things. So those are things that people don't necessarily have to deal with all the time, but individuals with ADHD may find that. So oftentimes we get stuck in our old money habits and they keep coming back. And the reason for that is because we are like in kind of building those into our brain system. We get a cue, we see bills come in, and that makes us nervous. And so our routine might become to put those bills in a pile, to ignore the emails of the online bills that come in, to do those sort of things. That becomes our routine, and we get a reward from that, right? We feel good. Oh, I didn't have to deal with that right now. I don't have to worry about it. And that reinforces the behavior, and then we just get into this cycle of going around and around. That happens with things. We get stressed in our lives, and maybe one of our coping mechanisms is impulse spending and buying things, online shopping, because that makes us feel good. That becomes our routine. We feel better, and that reinforces that system. So when we experience those things, that's what our brain just automatically starts going around this path. And so what we need to do is figure out ways to get out of those patterns that we're in. So think about it. Which pattern do you recognize the most in yourself? Could it be impulse spending when you're stressed or bored? Avoiding money tasks until crisis hits. I have clients that avoid working on their tax returns because that just feels tedious and monotonous. There's so many steps involved. I got to collect the stuff. I got all the things. So they avoid it and they avoid it and they avoid it. So all of a sudden it's April 15th and now I still haven't done anything about it. I'm going to extend it. Now it's October 15th, and the whole entire summer in the back of our ADHD brains is that little nugget rolling around saying, still have to do that tax return, still need to do it. But it doesn't necessarily get us to do it, right? We keep avoiding it until finally it's, October 14th, it's October 13th, and we've got to get that done. Sometimes a pattern happens as we want to start budgeting and saving money. And so we start strong because it's exciting and new, and we've got this new system and we're using a spreadsheet with color coding and all the fun stuff. But then pretty soon that becomes routine. It gets a little harder and we're back into our old habits of not following a budget. Shame spiraling after financial mistakes, that I find that can be one of the hugest obstacles, at least my clients that struggle with this, one of the hugest things that they struggle with. And then, of course, there's all of the above, the greatest hits, right? We struggle with all of those things. So just kind of take a minute and think about, like, what pattern do you recognize in yourself or maybe in someone else that you know with ADHD? Because when we recognize those things, then we can start thinking about what can we do differently to solve that. So this kind of goes back to that little routine, but this is my little shame cycle reel. I'm going to kind of go a little quickly through this, but how this works and how we get into this cycle that can kind of freeze us and make it hard to do anything is we get a trigger that comes in. So maybe we check our bank account and we're like, oh my gosh, how did this get to this balance already? We don't get paid for this long. Or, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that to happen. Or we open a bill. Oh my gosh, my credit card, how is this, how do I have this credit card balance? I thought I didn't put that much on there this time. Maybe we remember something that we've forgotten to pay. All of a sudden it pops in. Or and I find this a lot in couples that I am working with. One of them is the non-ADHD or non-ADHD partner might ask you about money. And that just triggers you to like shut down, not want to have the discussion. I had a client very successful in retail management for one of the retail chains headquartered here in Ohio. And she was doing amazing things, earning very well, but like every single one of these triggers would hit her. And she had like did not want to look at her bank balance, hated looking at credit cards, all of those things. And so she would avoid the whole way around. And it was really a big challenge for her because what she found was she I want to say lost her partner, but that's not the right word. Her and her partner separated, and so she was on her own, and now she had to manage all of that her partner had been managing for her, and she didn't really know how and didn't want to, and so she ignored it even more. And so she was borrowing money from her dad pretty much every month to cover her bills. And like I said, she was earning good money that should have been able to do this. But all these things just kept digging that bigger and bigger hole for her. So what happens when we get into that, we have an emotional response when one of those triggers come in, or all of them, right? Our anxiety spikes, that shame floods in, that negative voice in our heads tells us, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that again. Or, oh, here we go again. We panic, we get numb, all of those things just that floods in. And when that happens, that automatic reaction, that old pathway, if you think of that little circle that I showed you before, we avoid looking at our accounts. We don't open the bills. We don't want to know. We just want to ignore it. We ignore our budget. Maybe we had a budget set up, but oh wow, now I've got these extra things coming in and I don't know where to put them, so I ignore it. We shut down conversations and we tell ourselves, huh, I'll deal with it later, right? It goes into the not now category. And that becomes a problem, but it also gives us temporary relief, right? Oh, whew, that feels better. Temporarily, my anxiety drops because I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't face it. I can focus on some other things. And that reinforces that old pathway of how things happen. But as we keep going along and we get the consequences, right? Because that's the problem with this is those consequences always come back to haunt us. Our bills pile up, our late fees add up. The problem gets bigger, and in the background, that stress just grows and grows and grows. So what happens? It until we can't avoid it anymore, we have a bigger problem now. That shame is increased even more, that negative self-talk, and that old pathway gets a little deeper. And so what happens is we go right back to stage one, and that cycle just intensifies. So that shame cycle just keeps growing and growing and getting bigger. So this that's kind of the what's happening behind some of this. And some you might be sitting there going, yes, I know I have ADHD. I get it. That's what happens. But sometimes it's helpful for folks that maybe don't exist in that ADHD world, or a partner, to have that understanding of what's going on there, right? It's not about, oh, you just don't want to build our savings. You don't want to do that. It's more, no, we get lost in these things. So what shame, that is what often builds up for a lot of folks that I talk with around money. I mean, it tells us we're irresponsible when the truth is we have executive function challenges. It tells us we're lazy when really we might just be overwhelmed and need better systems. Shame says, oh my gosh, Christine, you should just try harder. But willpower is not the answer. You cannot shame yourself and willpower yourself into being better with this. It's having a different strategy and a way to think about it. Shame also might say in the back of your head, everyone else can do this. But here's the thing, many people struggle with these things. And you just see the highlight reel, right? I feel like on Facebook, on social media, all those places, people just post the great things that are happening and the good things. They're not posting that stress and that shame and that anxiety. Shame also says that you'll never change. But what I know, and people that have worked on their ADHD related things and have that understanding, is your past doesn't determine your future. You can change and you can do things different. It's just figuring out, what does that look like for me and how do I go about doing this? So, I am going to so one of the things, okay, well, we'll just keep going here. So rewiring strategy number one, we have to break that automatic response, right? So we have to feel that trigger. We have to pause, name the pattern. Oh my gosh, I don't want to have this conversation with my spouse. I am saying we can talk about it later. I'm doing all the things. That's my pattern. That's what's happening. And then we have to choose a new action, right? So if in our brains we can take a minute and take that pause when we get flooded, when like we open a credit card bill or we see, you've received a new Old Navy bill, right? And we're like, oh man, I don't know if I want to look at Christmas just passed. I don't want to look at it. No, like that's never helpful. I need to open this up and at least have it open. I need to know what the balance is or whatever. So we have to choose a new action. And so that's one of the things that can help rewire that shame pattern. And we have to celebrate the choice, right? Because it's not about successfully fixing all the money problems. It's about having done one small thing differently. And sometimes I feel like we get stuck in that. And a little, not necessarily money related, but my husband and I are at that stage. We're empty nesters. We have all this stuff in our house from all sorts of children's ages and all the things. And we're trying to figure out, what do we do? We made a huge list, like with 8,000 things on it, is what it feels like to my brain. And we did that in like October. We haven't really tackled anything on that list yet because it all feels so big. And so we had to say, you know what? Let's stop this. Like, let's pick one thing, like a weekend to work on, one small thing. So we hung some pictures up that had just been sitting on the floor. Like, that felt good. And so I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for us. Like, yay. And he's like, but why are you cheering? He's like, those have been sitting there. We should have hung them up a long time ago. And I'm like, no, I'm cheering because we've done one thing towards that bigger list of things. And we discount that celebrating like the one small thing we've done towards the progress. So I think that that's an important piece of this. Rewiring strategy number two is reframing your money stories, right? We have to think of our mindset and thinking about, okay, I know I've done this that way before, but here's my new story. I am someone who is coming up with a new plan to manage my impulse spending. And I'm going to celebrate that I'm someone who's working on that, not someone who just buys everything that pops through and looks exciting on Amazon, right? So thinking of what our news stories are. Um, Rewiring strategy number three is thinking about changing our thoughts from we've got to be perfect to we've got to make progress. So perfection is really the enemy of things being good enough. And we feel like that has to be our goal sometimes. I have to be perfect. I got to do all this and have it right. That's not the goal. The goal is making progress. And if we can reframe that thinking and have that become our new story, like, here's the progress I'm making, it's super helpful to breaking that. Um, and then systems over willpower, strategy number 4, right? We have to have a way of doing this. We can't just say, I can't tell you how many times talking with clients, what they'll say to me is, well, I just need to start doing it. I just need to do it better. I just need to do the thing. And I'm like, but if that just worked, like, that word just sometimes it just drives me crazy when I hear myself saying it or my clients, because I know that it's not just about doing it, because if we could all just do it, we would, right? We would do it that way. So the problem is we don't have a system that allows us to figure those things out and do them differently. So thinking about systems versus saying, I just need to fix it. I just need to budget better and save better. And then the last strategy is building self-compassion. I feel like this is like should be our number one ADHD strategy for so many of the things that we deal with, is we have to accept that we're not going to be perfect, accept that we're making progress, and love ourselves and be kind to ourselves, because otherwise it's shame. Shame doesn't motivate, because if shame motivated us, then, like, I wouldn't make up a presentation about helping people with their money matters, because they'd be so ashamed that they would fix it. But that's not what it's about. It's not about being motivated by the shame. It's being kind to yourself, recognizing that this is hard and that this is easy, and that I've been using this lately, like, we're human beings, and that makes us humans being. And sometimes that can be really challenging to be and know that it's okay. Like, I'm working on this and I'm going to figure it out, but I don't have it down yet. So these are a little sorry, these are a little out of order, but so impulsive spending, something that a lot of folks with ADHD share with me that they have struggled with, and they can happen for a lot of reasons, right? And some people say, oh, I'm just lazy, I have no self-control, I just like to buy things, it makes me feel good. But, like, it's actually part of, like, our struggles with executive functioning. And that sometimes people say, oh my gosh, I was having such a bad day and shopping made me feel better. And that's like trying to regulate our emotions through spending. And so that's where, like, having a different plan, making a different choice can be helpful. Oh, I didn't plan to buy it, but it was right there in front of me, right? Like, that can be really challenging. It's just there. I didn't mean to. I was on Facebook and all these Amazon cute outfits popped up. It was so easy to just click and buy something. The way we exist nowadays with social media and instant access to shopping and all that has changed how we have to do things. Before, it was a big I mean, it was a more of a to-do. You had to get in your car, you had to drive to a store, you had to drive to a mall, walk around, pick things out. Now it just shows up right in front of you on your laptop, on your phone, and it makes it a lot harder. This is this is where I get caught. This one over here, it was on sale and I was saving money. It is so like can be second nature to me to justify things in the present moment. Oh, I'm saving money. And my kids will come home from college and they'll be like, Mom, why do we have like 8 things of laundry detergent? It's just you and Dad. What are you doing with those? I'll be like, they were on sale. It was such a deal. And, they laugh at me and they're like, Mom, and I'm like, well, I was just going to give one to you guys. But right, it seemed like I was doing a good thing by saving money, but really not, because I mean that laundry detergent we will now have forever. I feel like even though I gave each of my kids one to take home, we still have more. So like we see things and we think, oh, I'm saving money. I'm making the good choices. So it it is good in some ways, but it's not good because I didn't need to spend on all of those right now. And then sometimes people that use credit cards and they'll be like, oh, I'll buy this right now and I'll pay it off right away. I'll just put the money back on. And so frequently that doesn't happen, right? That's our future consequence, feels theoretical. We don't think about what's actually going to happen, and we buy it. They get you. You walk into a store and they say, oh, would you like to open a credit card and get this? And then you can pay it off right away. That's great in some ways if you pay it off right away, but oftentimes you don't. And then it just keeps adding. Now you're paying interest. So that thing that you saved 15% or 30% on that day might actually be costing you 40 or 50% more if you are paying on it forever and ever and ever. And then it also, that starts to get into that where we struggle with self-compassion, because then we're mad at ourselves for not following the rules we set up. So these are some of the things that go on when we think that, oh, I just have to stop that impulse spending. This is what's happening underneath the water of that iceberg. And just keep in mind with all this, you don't have to tackle everything. We just are looking for like, what's the next smallest step that we can do? Like I said, these somehow got an order. I'm just going to go with this. This is usually the end, but remember this: ADHD is not a character flaw. And shame isn't going to motivate your lasting change, and small steps create transformation. So if you think about that, that should help you start thinking that you're capable of building a healthy relationship with money. It just might look different than you expected. So like I said, I love when these are so out of order. I apologize. So the challenges we can struggle with budgeting, with our goals, with credit card use, financial monitoring, meeting and talking about money and savings. And ADHD makes money more difficult to manage, but it's not impossible. And that's like, I want us to keep thinking that as we go through this. Okay, so here we go. This is the part I was looking for. I'm like, where are my strategies slides? So some strategies. Here's like 10. I, I heard myself say, here's 10 easy strategies. These aren't easy strategies, right? They're strategies. Some of them might feel easy. Some of them might feel incredibly hard, but here's 10 strategies that you could pick one of to try. So visual budgeting tools, right? That out of sight, out of mind. Savings is hard because it doesn't feel the same. So if we can use visual budgeting tools where we see things happening. My bank is great at this. They actually offer right in their app a budgeting tool, and they'll start to like categorize, my spending for me and help me keep track. That's visual budgeting, and it's done for me budgeting in some ways. So using tools like that are super helpful. Um, Setting up automatic payments. I know sometimes people, and I get it, are still worried about online, payments, online money transfers, all those things. But I have found that my clients who are doing this most of the time have decreased the amount of late fees that they're paying in huge amounts. They've gone from paying most of their bills late to having everything get paid on time. And you can set that up through your bank for your bank to pay bills for you, or you can set it up through individual vendors and companies that you work with for them to do your payments. Simplify financial accounts, and this is something I have to work at, but if you're someone who is like making I don't know, 15 different credit card payments. Like if you can consolidate that, maybe you've purchased gotten store credit cards over time and that, but if you can get rid of those and consolidate and just have one credit card that you need to worry about or two instead of all of these that you're managing can be super helpful. So simplifying some of those things. Having regular financial check-ins. So that might be with a partner, with someone, a good friend who can help you with that. But being able to check in and know where is my spending right now? How am I doing on my savings? How am I doing compared to what I was budgeting? It, Checking in on things like managing insurance, managing those kind of payments can be super helpful. Mhm. This is one of my favorites. Create an impulse spending plan. And this it's not easy to actually do it, but it can be easy to think about it and create a plan. And what I mean by this is, you know, Amazon, it's so easy to purchase things on Amazon, right? Or anywhere that you do online shopping. And it can be easy to do it. And then you see something else and you add to it. And now you have all of these things in there. So, and to my impulse spending plan is I put stuff in my shopping cart on Amazon, but it has to stay in there for like 48 hours till I actually think about purchasing it. And if I do that, usually in 48 hours, like the excitement of it, the thinking I need it, like I I don't anymore. So sometimes I'll do that. And if I think, oh, I like this, but it doesn't fit with, our spending plan right now, I'll just save it. I'll save it in a list so it doesn't get lost somewhere. If I really want it, I can go back and get it. But that that's been really helpful for me. And you can do that. It all started when my son was young and he wanted these things called bakugans, and they're these, I don't know, these weird little things, and they play on they're balls that play on a magnetic board, and when you go across the magnet they pop open. I don't know. He wanted all the time to be spending his money on these Bakugans. And so he'd want us to this was before all the online stuff. He'd want us to go to Target, buy Bakugans. It was constantly bugging. And a new one would come out and he'd be all excited and want us to do that. And then he wanted a hamster. And that was the same thing. Bug, bug, bug about the hamster. So we said, here's the deal. We noticed that like you get these Bakugans, it's exciting to get them because it's the new one, but then you don't really play with them after a couple days. So we started putting in, like, he had to tell us and then he had to wait a week, which I don't know, he was probably 8 or 9 or 10. Like waiting a week is like, I might as well have told him he had to wait till he went to college to buy Bakugans because it felt so long for him. But you know what? He did. He waited. And oftentimes he'd be like, you know what? Actually, there's something else that I want more. And when he wanted a hamster, and because he wanted all sorts of pets, and he got on this hamster kick and he bugged every day. Wanted to buy the hamster, wanted to do the hamster. So we said, all right, let's think about this. You need to create a plan about this hamster. What's it cost? What are all the things, right? Because it's not like you don't just buy a hamster and bring it home. You have to buy all the other things. And do you have the money? So we had him go through kind of and build a plan. And by the time he did that and took the time to do it and researched it, I don't know, we might have made it be like 3 weeks or something. You know what? In 3 weeks, and after all that research, he still wanted the hamster. So we got the hamster. But it was different than if we had just gone out and bought it, I think, without him having thought it through and done all the work and really knowing what he got into. So having that impulse spending plan can be helpful. Um, some people find that using cash for daily expenses can be super helpful, right? Because that idea of like you just stick your debit card in the machine, do that, and you can withdraw out of your account so quickly. But if you go back to, like, my mother-in-law does this still. She gets her money out of the bank once, I don't know if she does it once a month or once every 2 weeks, and puts it all in little envelopes That's what she takes to the grocery store. That's what she takes to the dry cleaners. So like, that's her budgeting. Like, you can only spend what cash you actually have. I don't even know that my mother-in-law has a debit card. I don't think she does, because she actually goes into the bank to get her money out. She still writes checks. So, I mean, kind of she doesn't have ADHD, but for her, that's how she manages her spending. That's how she always did it. She had 4 kids. That's what it was. Like, when the money in the envelope was gone, you couldn't keep spending. Whereas, with a debit card, you can keep sticking that into the machine. And until your account is empty, it will keep giving you money. But that might not be the best thing for you if you need that money to pay other bills and that. So sometimes that cash for daily expenses can be helpful. Break down your financial goals. I mean, I feel like that's kind of a typical, like, how do you manage your ADHD thing? You have a goal, break it down. It doesn't all happen to be at once. One of the simplest things, I have 4 kids, like my mother-in-law. I followed in her footsteps, I guess, but I also have 4 kids. And when they were young and Christmas and all that, that would seem like a lot. How do I manage all this money? How do I save up all these things? So and my parents used to do this. They had like a Christmas club through their bank. And so we did that. We said, you know what? Instead of like having to charge things or, using up all our cash money in December or November when we're buying Christmas presents. And for me, it was always in December because I never planned ahead with that. But when we did that, we saved money. Like, we took a certain amount of money every month and save that out for Christmas. So when Christmas time came, we could spend. We did that for our vacations. So we kind of created like little micro budgets for ourselves by saving money aside. So when it came time for the event, we were ready for it and we could spend that. Now, was that my idea? No. Thankfully, I am married to a very like, let's plan this out and do this person. And so he did that, but it was great because then we always knew we had X amount to spend on Christmas and we knew how to divide it up. So kind of breaking down your financial goals and into smaller chunks makes it easier. Use reminders and alerts if you have to make payments, if you have to do certain things, if you have to transfer money back and forth. 2 of my girls are just finishing college. This is our last semester. I'm making my last tuition payments. I'm so excited. But like, if I don't remember to transfer money from our like college savings that we've had, that account, and move it into our regular banking account, when the money comes out to pay their tuition, it's not there. So like, I have to set myself reminders and alerts to do those sort of things. So, how can you do that? Minimize your financial risks. Think about what you can do to, don't well, what do I want to say? Sorry, my brain just like jumped ahead, and it's now raining. So I'm like, oh, do I run my do I run my windshield wipers? Sorry, the effects of giving a presentation in your car. So but you have to think about, like, how can I minimize my financial risks? And that's by doing things that allow you to save money up, to make sure you have money in your accounts when you need it, and not go outside of your means, and then seek professional advice, right? So if you are struggling with money, financial advisors can be great. Your people at your bank can be great, helping you set up budgets, helping you set up ways for money to go into your accounts to save. We have money that comes out of our paychecks and go directly into several different savings accounts. And so we don't have to make those changes, but we had the bank help us set those up. So seeking professional advice for those things can be helpful. People always ask, how do I budget? I'm terrible at that. A lot of people are terrible about that, right? It's hard to save money. It's hard to budget and stick with it. But the standard thing that research and that people kind of talk about is, you should think of your wants, your needs, and then your savings or paying down your debt. So your wants, those are things that you want, right? That might be planning for a vacation or a new outfit or something like that. Your needs are your housing, your food, transportation, all of those things that you have to pay. And then savings, that's saving things up. Or it might be better, instead of saving money, if you do have debt, sometimes it's better to pay your debt down instead of saving things up, depending on how much interest you're paying. So, how you can do that and get started with it is to know where your money is coming in from and where it's going out. So, income tracking, categorizing your expenses, looking at that, like for the past year, looking at it for the past 3 months. The client that I mentioned, like we had to stop, and we talked about it, and I had her go through and look at all of her expenses for the past, I think we did 3 months. That was all her anxiety would allow her to do. But when she did that, she realized that like her grocery spending was very small. Her restaurant spending was huge because she didn't plan to have food in the house. So the easiest thing to do was to stop and pick up food or to DoorDash food. She was spending so much money on eating out, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But when she realized that's what was happening, she said, that's not what I want to do. Like, that's crazy. I shouldn't be doing that. So we had to kind of thinking again, making a different choice. We had to think of, okay, well, what's that mean now to actually go to the grocery store and buy food? How can you do that in an ADHD friendly way? So we talked about things, it might be easier to buy some grocery store prepared foods. A lot of our grocery stores do that now. Like you can buy stuff that their kitchen has made, and you don't have to cook it, and you have to cook it. You don't have to make it and prepare it, but it's already done. But that is way cheaper than going to a restaurant or ordering out or door dashing and paying those things. So when she started looking at that and realizing, wow, like she was able to, her food budget went from I forget what it was. It was probably of her needs. It was a great portion of that. She was able to bring that down by about, I think at the end, she would like halved what she was spending each month just because she was able to think about it and plan. But if you don't know what you're spending on, then that's not helpful. I can easily, in fact, where I chose to park, I had to laugh. I'm parked in a Starbucks parking lot. I love, love, love Starbucks chai tea lattes, hot. I drink them hot, whether it's 20 degrees, 5 degrees, or 90 degrees. I love that. I love it. And for a while, there was a period where I was going there almost every day and picking that up. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, I feel like there's something happening in our bank account. And when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, like that adds up. If you're spending $5.65 every day on a coffee that I could also make at home. It's not as good, but like I had to realize that like that was over $100 a month I was spending on drinking a drink on my way to work or wherever. And so it sort of bothered me because we were trying to watch, 4 kids, college, all that stuff we were trying to watch. And I was like, why am I doing that? And so I had to change that and say, okay, I'm doing it because it's convenient, but I don't need to. I can make a coffee, but I'm going to treat myself to a chai tea. And I started off once a week, I would go and do that. So like that right away dropped my spending down to I was spending 20% of what I had been spending. And you know what? I found out I enjoyed that one a week way better than I really was just kind of drinking the ones for 4 other days during the week. And now I'm down to, I've said, okay, that's fine. 2 a week, 2 a month. So I have I go twice a month and I pick my days. I get excited about it. So it's like an exciting thing. And I'm happy with that because I don't feel like I'm wasting money. I don't feel like I'm missing out on things, and I enjoy it. And so that's where how can you just one small change actually gives me $100 a month to put towards a trip that I take every year in February with my girlfriends. And we go to Florida. Like I now have $1,200 that I can spend on that versus a tummy full of yummy chai tea lattes every day. So, right, you have to think about like what's important and how can I make one small change? Like that's, I mean, it felt like a big change at the beginning because I love those things, but that was one small change I made that allowed me to then have a bigger outcome later. So I think that's important. Um, I mentioned people think savings are hard. So when you think of savings, oftentimes it's super important to have an emergency fund. Like even if you can set aside a little each month that goes into that fund so that when your tires blow, or, my daughter just had to have her brakes replaced. She's like, Mom, it's the blah, blah, blah. She was all upset about it. I said, Where's the money coming from? And she laughed and said, My emergency fund. And I said, See, that's why you've been doing that, right? So having that emergency fund, it's still $650 she had to pay, but it didn't come out of all the other things she had to do because she's been over time, just putting it aside a little bit here and there, that's can be a helpful way to save. Goal-oriented savings, that's like I mentioned, like saving up for a vacation or putting a little aside every paycheck for Christmas time, birthday time, other holidays that you celebrate, all those things. My family, we have very large Thanksgivings. And if you have to host Thanksgiving, it can get expensive because there's so many people come and there's all the things. So like I said one year, I'm like, oh, I think we ought to like start in July and like just save up a little bit. So we started a Thanksgiving fund for our year of that. So that's great. Like I mentioned, the automated savings, have things that come right out of, that's the one of the great things about you don't have to see it money is you can have money come, usually your bank, sometimes your employer can set this up, can go right into different accounts. So you could actually put money right into savings that doesn't go into a checking account that disappears before you have a chance. And then, kind of one of the best ways to save is to track your spending, right? Because if you know what you're spending, you can think about ways to save here and there. Um, this is one of the things that I mentioned is having financial conversations. That was one of the 10 steps. So one of the things that I've been working on, and I have clients that have worked on this, but like thinking of what does it look like to do a daily micro check? Like what's happening, with your bank balance? What's happening, do you have anything coming up that needs to get paid? That sort of thing. So just a quick check-in with yourself every day about your money matters. And then a weekly check-in. What might that look like? Looking at what bills are coming up to pay. Do you have any expenses that you didn't expect to have? That sort of thing. A monthly check-in and a review, and then your annual review and planning. I had a client that told me they have certain things that they do annual review and planning for, like all year. So not like one big one, like in January, but like in February, they look at their life insurance. And in, I don't know the exact months. I'm just making this up, but in March, they look at health insurance. Now that would probably be home insurance. And then they look at their auto insurance, they look at their savings, so like they have these where they look at and decide, do we need to, check with some other home insurers? Are we at the right level of our deductible? Do we, if we increased our home value, all those sort of things. So those are important things that help with financial help. They're not just the money related things. All right. Well, I think I feel like I rushed through that. I feel partially because I'm not in my normal environment. But hopefully um the, you have some ideas that you can take away from and that can be helpful for you as you're going through and thinking about how you manage money, thinking about why you might do some of the things you do related to money, right? So it's not, it's not that you are intentionally making bad choices, that you're never going to be able to do these things. Like I said, it's that big self-compassion piece. Um, I am gonna go ahead and nice, really quick flip through here. No, let me go back the other way. I think I think I hit all of my slides. So I'm going to take myself off of my slides and open it up for questions, thoughts, anything that I can answer for anybody. Like I said, I feel like I flew through that really fast. So I want to give you opportunity to ask questions, anything you guys have.
I just want to say that was amazing. How
Oh,
great.
thank you.
Um, this is Ellen,
Yeah.
in case you're wondering. Um, so one of the things that I was wanting to ask about has to do with having credit card bills that come on email versus getting paper. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Um, I think that my thought is that that's probably can be super individualized, right?
Mm.
I think some of it is possibly generational. I know my mom will never like she will never do anything online. You know, all of her bills, all of her bills come to her paper. She likes it that way. That just for her, that doesn't make any sense to have all this stuff coming through, I forget how she says it, but coming through the air to her, that just shouldn't happen. It should come in the mail, that sort of thing. Um, I think that one of the things like with credit card bills that can be nice is that you can the to me, the filing is easier because I can save those things digitally in a file and open it up. And sometimes you can even go in and like if you have your accounts online, like you can look at a whole year's worth of activity all at one time instead of having to pull out 12 different um statements. So I think sometimes that can be easier. But I think it's how your comfort level with with being online with that kind of financial information. I think it can be scary for people, and that's why some people like to have the paper things. But I feel like having it there and then I know for me I don't I very rarely pay I used to pay things late a lot because I'd forget about it. I didn't write the check. I couldn't find the paper wherever it was. I know where my stuff is online, right? Because it's just all in one place here on my laptop. So that's easier for me and I can set up online payments and so it knows and it pays it. I think for me then the challenge is when a statement I get notice that a statement comes in, I actually have to make sure I open that email and open that statement and read it. And that's where for me like I use that the like those daily, weekly, monthly, annual check-ins. I like check that weekly. Like I don't want to be checking and opening statements every day. So that's part of our Sunday fun day that we do at my house. And Sunday fun day involves opening up credit card bills and doing that. And we have done that like with our kids all along. So now I even have kids who will jump on and do Sunday fun day on Zoom with us and they'll open their stuff. And so it's like instead of it being this big scary, oh, I have to keep track with this, it's like, it's just part of our family experience and we do that. So we've kind of set those things up to make it feel less scary, I think even for our kids to do those things. But I'm curious, Ellen, like what makes you ask that question about the of mail versus online digital email things?
Well, with it happens that one credit card, I said, "Oh, okay, come through the mail," and then no, come on the computer, and then I didn't open it, and then I'm charged interest, and
Yeah.
that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Um, so um, I felt like I had a choice because if I got a paper statement, they were going to charge me extra for the paper statement.
Mm.
That pissed me off too.
Yeah.
Um, so I decided, okay, I'll have automatic payments, so it just pays automatically.
Yeah.
But I use that credit card the least because I want to be able to manage and know, like
Hmm.
what what's what. Um,
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And that's why I think like that it can be personal. I don't think there's any one way that's better in managing that. I think it's what what makes sense for you and what you're comfortable with. For me and for a couple clients I've had, like let's list down where are all of your accounts. When do they, kind of make a little list for yourself of when do you get the email, when are they due, that sort of thing, so you know when to check them. Because I think sometimes, like you said, when they come in an email, it could just, I get 8 million emails, and is it a sales email that they're having a sale, or is it my credit card email, that sort of thing. So I think knowing when to expect something, and then you can look for it and do that, can be helpful. So I think it's probably a preference in what you can come up with a system to make work for you. The person I mentioned, that was ignoring all her things, she decided that for her, she actually wanted to have paper statements come. And she said the same thing. She had a couple companies that it was like $3.50 or $5 to get it mailed. But she wanted that because then she could put that like in a physical, hold it in her hand file system that she came up with. She still paid them online, but her statements, so she could see them and track, she just wanted that have it in hand kind of thing. Um, so, that worked for her, but she did pay him online. I know sometimes, well, not sometimes, I think most like credit cards too, a lot of them, you can like download into an Excel spreadsheet. So maybe or download into QuickBooks or some other Quicken online that you're using to track your finances. So sometimes that's easier because you don't actually have to type it in. You can just use that to let it download automatically into those for you. So sometimes people like that. And I think some of that is a generational comfort level thing. All of that. Like I said, my mom, she she calls me all the time complaining, I got an email that the dentist sent a virtual statement to me, and she's like, I don't want that. And I'm like, well, call and tell them they got to mail you one. So I think it's your comfort level and what you can, like I said, come up with a plan to make it work for you. But you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're all ADHD.
Yeah.
And so you're asking us to make a plan? Come on.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like
and I say that, half
I
in
know.
jest. But the thing so here's my takeaway
Yeah.
from tonight. I
Yes.
think what I'm going to do is have all my utility bills paid online automatically.
Yeah.
Um, Not my credit card because I really want to know
Like that. Yeah.
what's going where.
Yeah.
But that should be okay.
Yeah.
The thing that you said that made me go, like, really? Download to an Excel sheet? Really? Somebody has to teach me how to download from there to there. Now,
Yeah.
I do create an Excel sheet at the end of every year, and
Yep.
I have all the credit cards, and then I put them into categories, and then I figure out how to plug them into what the accountant needs.
Hmm.
I wish there was an easier way.
Can I say
Joan,
something about
please.
that?
Say something.
This is an excellent use of AI because all you have to do is say, ChatGPT, explain to me in detail, like I'm 5 years old. How do you download something? Blah, 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 blah. A- AI is a great place to ask for directions. How do I do this? And if it says it and you still don't understand it, you just say, I still don't get it. Explain it to me in more detail. Explain it to me like I'm even younger than five, it's a great use. So I want to share that with everybody. If we don't know how to do
Yeah,
something, ask chat
I
or
love that.
Thank you.
Claude or
Yeah. And
yeah.
you could even, and I know like with credit cards, you have to be careful, but you could like if you, I,
Wait. I want to interrupt for a minute.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Don't put any of your credit card information
No,
into chat. The
right.
only thing you're asking chat is
Yeah.
how do I download something into QuickBooks,
Yeah.
right? Don't
Yeah.
put an ounce of your information into chat.
Right.
I want to
Right.
be really clear about that.
Yes. No,
Okay.
you definitely do not want any like that personal identifying information in there.
Yeah,
Yeah. You don't
nothing.
want that.
I
Yeah.
want to say that again.
Yes.
Nothing.
Yeah, you
Okay.
don't want that in there for sure. But yeah, I have used that to though take a screenshot of like the expenses part just of my credit card and then have it categorize for me. So it'll take those and categorize things. Not the whole, yeah, not my account number and my address and my name, but just a screenshot of those picture pieces. But yeah, I think I love though, Joni, I love what you said to ask it how to, how can you use that to have it come from your credit card into this Excel spreadsheet or Quicken or whatever you use.
Yeah.
That's a great use
Now,
case.
if you have a person to ask, it's always great to ask a person
Yeah.
because, like that's preferable to
Yeah.
actually interact with a person and
Mhm.
ask a person. Um,
But
but if you're stuck, it's a great option, right?
yeah.
One of the things that I really was thinking about what you said is that cup of coffee seems so inconsequential. $5 a day. What's a mere $5 a day? And I went through this with my son. $5 a day is, $25 a week that you don't have. That's
Yeah.
$100 a month that you don't have.
Yeah.
But, making coffee in the morning, it's such a pain. I'm running out the door. I'm just gonna, and so adding it up, so you see, so $100 a month, you see that. And I think also in that moment of choice, when you have to say, I'm not going to get coffee, that's when it's really, really hard. Like before, you could make a plan and be like, you know what? This doesn't make sense to pay $100 a month. I'm not going to get coffee tomorrow morning. And in the morning, you're tired and you're not driving to work. And you're like, all right, I'll start that tomorrow. Like and all you can think about is how delicious that coffee tastes, right?
Yeah.
It's in that moment that it's so hard to not follow through on the impulse, So I think that one of the things that I heard you say was connecting it to something meaningful. Like
Mhm.
imagine yourself lying on the beach on that vacation, like in that moment. Think about it ahead of time. What am I going to think about to help me get through that impulsivity patch,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to see myself lying on the beach. I'm going to see whatever it is, visualize that goal. And I think that's helpful because you're attaching meaning and purpose to your action, which can ignite your dopamine to be able to grab onto that executive function that you need to be
Yep.
able to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it. Thinking about spending a week in February in Florida instead of Columbus, Ohio is very enticing when I think I want to stop and get a coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's part of the plan,
Yeah.
right? The
Yep.
part of the plan is like tomorrow.